November 19th. Let them give thanks to the Lord for His unfailing love and His wonderful deeds for mankind. Let them sacrifice thank offerings and tell of His works with songs of joy. Psalm 107 verses 21 and 22. Psalm 107 is a glorious song of thanksgiving. It starts with a familiar exhortation to worship. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His love endures forever. As we can see, the main theme of the psalm is thanksgiving for God's goodness and enduring love. The psalmist goes on to describe 4 situations where God's love is seen. And 4 times we come across the refrain, let them give thanks to the Lord for His unfailing love and His wonderful deeds for mankind. Let's look at each of these 4 situations briefly and give thanks for how God has redeemed us in similar circumstances. 1. Some wandered in desert wastelands, finding no way to a city where they could settle. There are those of us who have erred, been led astray and deceived. We find ourselves in a spiritual wilderness, unable to find our way home to our Father and settle in His promised rest. But God finds us and guides us to Him once again. Thanks be to God. 2. Some sat in darkness and the deepest gloom, for they had rebelled against the words of God. There are those of us who find ourselves in bondage and captivity, whether physical prison or mental affliction or spiritual oppression, because of our own rebellion and disobedience. But God breaks our chains and brings us out of the darkness and gloom. Thanks be to God. 3. Some became fools through their own rebellious ways and suffered afflictions because of their iniquities. There are those of us who get physically sick, even to the point of death because of our sinful ways. The effects on the body of alcoholism, drugs, stress, even sexual promiscuity or perversions are examples of this. But God sends His word and heals us. Thanks be to God. 4. Others went out to sea in ships. They reeled and staggered like drunken men. They were at their wits' end. Just like sailors caught in a fierce storm, we can find ourselves without hope, helpless and desperate in the storms of life. But God brings stillness and calm into those situations and brings us to safety. Thanks be to God. Each of us has been in one or more, maybe even all of the above situations. Our only response to God's goodness should be thanksgiving. The psalmist exhorts us to thank God for His unfailing love, for His deeds which are extraordinary and surpassing in greatness, and to do so in public and joyful exaltation. Today's prayer: Lord Jesus, thank You for guiding me out of the wilderness, for breaking my chains of bondage, for healing me from the consequences of my own sin, and for calming the storms in my life.